Welcome to the EBPowerCon presentation, Closing the Deal with Leasing. Let's say you're quoting a lighting retrofit that will deliver strong energy efficiency results, leading to reduced expenses for your client. But you can't close the deal because the client hesitates on price. Maybe they're worried about unpredictable payments, taking a loan from the bank, and so on. Perhaps they would overcome their anxiety and hire you to do the job if they could lease the installation. Joanne Bailey, an equipment finance specialist with Catalyst Finance Partners, has over 20 years of experience in negotiating contracts for small to medium sized businesses for a few $1,000s up to Fortune 500 companies in the millions. And she joins us today to show you how you can use leasing as a tool for closing the deal and landing the work. And now, please take it away, Joanne.
Well, thank you, Anthony. I'm very honored to be here with you and to share some insights. And I've been in the equipment leasing business for many, many years. And typically, my focus is working with people that have a product or service to sell and ideally help them close more deals by offering a lease at the point of sale. So, today we're going to talk about closing using leasing or a financing solution. So, many times in the sales cycle, you've done your best, you've done your job, and you've met with your client, you've done your discovery, you've done your need assessment, and you've got the solution for the client. And you are presenting this solution to the client, and unfortunately, it doesn't close. Well, there might be many reasons it doesn't close, but let's explore one in particular in this presentation. So back in 2019 and even through 2020, our markets definitely changed. But back in 2019, 80% of companies had easy access to bank money. The economy was strong. CapEx was not a scary thing. The financial buyer had lots of options. And leasing was a good option in certain situations when acquiring assets. But it wasn't necessarily the only one. So if we can all remember back to 2019, before this terrible COVID, the sales environment was very, very different. Now we're in a very different market, and the finance market now, COVID is forcing the financial buyer to play defense. Companies are cutting costs, conserving capital, and managing and preserving credit facilities. The financial buyer is focusing on the technical decision maker to the back of the bus. So typically when you would offer a solution to your client, maybe there was the CFO or the financial buyer, but there was also perhaps someone that was evaluating your solutions, the energy cost savings, whatever it might be. And that technical buyer was influencing the financial buyer to getting them to say yes to the solution. Now that technical decision buyer is really, pushed aside. Because the financial buyer is the one that's making the decision, and it's very difficult at this time. So government-backed loans will be used to stay open and retain employees. And challenging right now for you is if you are not dealing with a financial buyer, you will struggle to close your deal. So let's explore this a little bit more. Typical sales cycle is, I like to call it the yes ladder. All right. So you prospect, you find a client. They like you. They decide, you know what? I'd be interested to hear what you have to say. You do a demo for them or you create a proposal. They like what they see. They say, tell me more. How much is it going to cost me to do business with you? And that is the critical stage. We are going up that yes ladder. The client likes you. They trust you. They like what they're seeing. But if we get to that financial point to say, here's what it's going to cost, and we only have one solution on that, then oftentimes that's where your sale can just fall apart. Sorry, we're not going to do it right now. It's going on the back burner. Whatever they do, they don't say yes to you. But yes, no, or maybe a no or a wait is the same as a no. We want the sale today. So Again, we've talked about the two buyers. We've got our technical decision maker. Their titles are oftentimes someone like a plant manager, VP of operations, general manager, and their role is to evaluate the technical perspective, the feasibility of the project, the risk, support, the upgrades. The financial buyer, their titles are such as corporate controller, VP of finance, CFO, and their role is they control the money. They control the budget. They manages the return on investment, and they're going to focus on the acquisition costs. So when we are at that stage where we're offering that quote, we give the customer a capital cost, but we are also giving them a monthly payment. And I'm going to show you later in the presentation how you can easily quote a monthly payment. But for the purposes of this presentation, if I can just use an average dollar value of say 50,000. So let's say your solution is 50,000, but you don't present it just as 50,000. You present it as, let's say 50,000 or $2,000 a month, which is more convenient for you. $50,000, that end user is going to be thinking about, where am I going to get that $50,000? If you present it as $2,000, well, you've just given the customer a solution. Another thing to think about is when you present that $50,000 as a capital cost, no doubt your client is going to come back and say, well, you know, I've been talking to your competitors and they've given me a quote for 45,000. So now, in order to secure your order, will you discount? Well, all right, let me go back. Let me see where I can trim some numbers. All right. But in reality, when you're trimming those numbers, you're probably taking away from the margins. And margin is not a dirty word. You have to have a margin to stay in business, just as your customer has a margin to stay in business. Okay, so don't be afraid of that. And when you present, instead of $50,000, if you're offering that 2,000 and you get your customer thinking about that 2,000, rarely are they going to come back and say, well, I can get it for $1,995 over a 60-month period. And if they do, give me a call. Okay, so you're going to minimize discounting when you present that 50,000 or that 2,000 a month. You're going to overcome those cost objections too. 50,000, wow, ooh, we didn't think it was going to be that much. We thought it was going to come in around 30,000. Wow. But even if it is 50,000, if that's the real solution, you've given them a way that they can get the real solution by a monthly payment. So really, I'm jumping around a little bit here on this page, but you're selling by need, not by budget. When you did your discovery, when you talked to the client about their business, when you talk to them about what they need to run their operations better, right? You discovered certain needs. You didn't talk to them about a budget. Maybe you did, and that's good too. But if we present that 50,000 and that's really what they need, and that 2,000, you're matching the actual true need, and you're not selling by budget. Okay, so I think oftentimes in everybody's lives, we bought something by budget as opposed to need. And typically it doesn't actually solve the actual problem. So make sure you're selling by need by using leasing to get the customer what they need today. You will also have the ability for a faster closing cycle. All right, now this is going to work in a couple of scenarios. You might be dealing with a small to medium-sized business, say a business that the person that you're dealing with is the chief cook and bottle washer, as they say. They own the business, they run the business, they got a lot of things on their plate, and you're there trying to sell them a solution. And, you know, you're sitting across the desk from them, it's 11 o'clock in the morning, you have no idea what happened in their morning, but they could have had a truck breakdown. They could be dealing with some insurance issues. Maybe somebody called in sick. Maybe somebody quit, right? All of these things. And that person in that decision has all of these decisions to make. And if you present just as 50,000, now they've got to think, where am I going to come up with 50,000? Gee, I don't really want to go to my bank these days. They're not the friendliest. right? But if you present it as $2,000 a month and they see the benefit, they see the ROI of your solution, and you've given them a solution at $2,000 a month, and they say, well, what's that all about? Well, it's a lease. How do we make that happen? Look, I'm going to engage Joanne Bailey and we'll make it happen. That's how easy it is. Now, that's a scenario with a small to medium sized business, but you might be dealing with a very large organization. That large organization will have the technical buyer who's making the recommendations to the CFO, but that CFO, it knows that money's tight. And if you are able to really reach that CFO or the financial buyer, make sure you're including them in your discussions and you present it as that 2,000 a month. And they're a smart person and they go, wow, you're saving me X number of dollars and this is only costing me $2,000. Let's make sure we go ahead. Let's do this project. Now, the challenge is if you don't offer a lease option and you present it as that $50,000 and it goes from that technical buyer up to the financial buyer or up to different levels of authority for approval, okay, what can happen is you lose control of your sale. Because the more people you get involved, it goes up to a different level of authority for that decision-making ability. And when it gets up to somebody else in the company, they're going to say, oh, my brother-in-law does that. He's in that business. Why don't we call him and get a quote? You've just lost your sale, or you've threatened your sale. Sorry, you might not have lost it. So faster closing ratios, take control of your sale, make it easy for the customer to say yes to you, and you will find faster closing. You'll sell by need. You'll be able to upsell the customer. Maybe they didn't think about, what if I do my warehouse too? What's that going to cost me on a monthly basis? Right? You can upsell the customer. And you will also have trade-up opportunities when the lease is set. Instead of paying for it for cash, the customer has now entered into a monthly obligation on a long-term basis. And we are going to keep you up to date on what stage that lease is, so that at the end of the term of the lease, ideally, you're going to go back to the client and talk to them about their present needs. So it just gives you another touch point. Always a great idea to have more touch points with your clients. So we've just talked about you're going to make more money. You're going to have faster closing ratios. You're going to minimize discounting. You're laughing all the way to the bank, really. Okay. And I, of course, am happy if you reach out to me and ask me to put a lease together for you and your client. That's my business. What about the client? Very important. It must be a win-win. And we're going to talk about that. So we talked about quick credit turnaround. It's simplified documentation for your client. And we do have the ability to establish credit lines for your clients. So your clients are leasing because of this fast, easy, it's simple. They don't have to go to their bank. It's done at the point of sale. It's all about convenience. That's one of the reasons. But we have to talk about other reasons the client is using leasing to finance this solution that you've presented. And the reason why I want to go through this is to help you and to coach you to close more deals. Close and close are spelt the same, but only one pays. So we've gone $50,000. We've gone up that yes ladder. The customer's interested in that $2,000. They're not giving you the cash. I mean, if they're giving you a PO for the 50, you take that to the bank and away you go. You don't need me. But we're now talking about that 2,000. The customer has some interest in that. So let's talk about that. Because at this point, the customer will have objections. And unfortunately, this isn't an interact and I'm being recorded, but maybe Anthony will come up with some questions. But regardless, I'm going to sort of role play with myself because I know typical objections that happen at this stage of the point of sale. So your customer is going to say to you, a lease. Well, what's that all about? What's the interest rate on that lease? Oh my God. You don't know the answer to that question. And that's a very common question. And I want to give you a very simple answer to that question. And I think I've mentioned I've been doing this for a lot of years. And during one of my presentations of this to a particular vendor, I was in the room and a vendor rep put up their hand and said, "Hey, Joanne, what's the interest rate on your leasing?" And the thing is, there's not a simple answer because the interest rate is going to vary depending on if we're talking 5,000 or if we're talking $1 million. So there's a pretty big variance. But I'm going to say, using the example we're talking about, that $50,000, our interest rate is going to be somewhere around that 6.5%. Okay. Now, you can tell your customer it's 6.5, but I don't know the financial savvy of who you're dealing with. Okay, you might be selling a solution to, again, a mom pop organization, to someone who is, used to seeing driving up and down Miracle Mile and seeing 0% interest. And they say to you, like 6.5, get out of my office. That's highway robbery. Okay. I don't know. You might be dealing with a CFO who knows that 6.5% set for a term of 5 years is an excellent rate because it's a guaranteed payment for the 5-year term. Hopefully, you have an ROI for them that your energy savings are going to offset some or more of that monthly payment. But we have to also look at where we are in today's economy. Interest rates have never been lower. For the past 5 years, we have been historically low. We've got some good news on the horizon. The vaccine is out. We're going to get vaccinated. We're going to get back to business as normal. So just let's think about this for a minute. Where do you think interest rates are going to go? Nowhere but up. So that savvy CFO will know that 6.5 for a 5-year term is going to be pretty darn good, because who knows where my prime is going to be in 2023, right? So, but I don't know the financial savvy of your buyer. So I want to give you an answer to that question. What is the interest rate? The simple answer is, you know what? I don't know. I've gotten a quote from you from a certain supplier. And if you want to compare to your own resources, feel free to check it out and compare. But in the meantime, if you have an interest in the lease, why don't we get you pre-approved? I love this answer for many reasons. Number one, it's the truth. You don't know. You are not there to be a financial advisor to your client. You're simply offering them a solution or an alternative, let's call it. So you've given them the truth. I don't know. You've said, you're not obligated to my financing solution. If you've got your own resources, feel free to check them out and compare, of course. But number three, you've asked for a trial close. Close and close are spelt the same, but only one pays. Why don't I get you pre-approved? Bring that customer in. Now, I just want to talk a little bit, really, I'll step aside here for a minute. So when you say, why don't I get you pre-approved? What's involved in that? You engaged me, you send me a copy of the customer's quote and their contact details. I take it from there. Generally, $50,000, 60 months, we're going to have an answer for you in 24 hours. Okay, we're going to come back and touch on that. All right. So again, it's going to be an objection. When the customer asks, what's the interest rate? It's not a question. It's an objection because no one wants to pay interest. And unfortunately, I can't tell you it's 0% because honestly, that's what the client wants to hear. 0%, no problem. Where do I sign? Now, a lot of people in the energy world that I do work with do say it's 0% because the energy savings offsets the monthly payment. So in reality, that is a 0%. But I just want to talk about that. You're going to get these objections. Second objection, $50,000, $2,000 a month. Customer says, oh, $2,000 a month. What's that? Well, that's a lease obligation. It's a guaranteed payment for 60 months. Oh, Yeah, no, boss says, if we don't have the money, we don't get it. Okay. That's a typical, response, and you're going to get that. People are going to say, no, no, if we don't have the cash, we can't do it. So what we want to talk about that, this is conservation of working capital. We want to talk to the customer. Is it important that you own the product? Or is it important that you derive benefit? Okay. For a lot of the solutions, you're creating energy savings. Why wait? Why wait till you have the capital to do that? There's a way of enjoying those energy savings today. So it's using today's dollars, or using tomorrow's dollars, using tomorrow's dollars today for the solution, to pay for the solution today. All right, so talk to the customer about that. Customer might think, well, maybe I should go to my bank to talk to them about this. And you know what? You would never say your customer not to do that. But you know what? They might not want to go to their bank. They might want to preserve their credit lines at the bank. Another thing about going to the bank is the bank might say, I think this is probably going to be a good thing for your business, but my brother-in-law does that. Oops, that old brother-in-law again. Or they say, you know what, you haven't had a very good year. And we talked about lending ratios in a couple of screens earlier. Customer might say, you know what, I can look at this for you, but I'm going to need to see up-to-date financial statements. And, I like the proposal. It sounds good, but I don't really know anything about that. So I'm going to need additional security. Okay. Or, this proposal doesn't really make much sense to me. I don't understand this business. And we're certainly not going to be able to do the labor or the design costs. So remember, on a lease, typically we can include 100% of that project. Much different than bank financing. You don't want to refrain your customer from going to the bank. But what I'm saying is that could be challenging in the economy in the next year or so. For your customer, it's ease of budgeting. It's one monthly payment. It's set for the term of the lease. Okay, a line of credit is subject to prime, and it can vary depending on the term. It can vary depending on what current interest rates are doing. Whereas on a lease basis, that monthly payment is not going to change. So it's ease of budgeting. The other thing about a lease, it's asset specific. The only security that is taken by the leasing company is that specific asset. Yes, I mean, if you're doing a lighting retrofit, that's the security we take. The light bulbs doesn't make a lot of sense, but we do it. We're an unsecured lender. We're happy to do this. It's a boiler. It's a chiller. All right. It's a rooftop. That's our security. That and the signature of the company. Okay. Every once in a while, we might require a personal guarantee. Typically not. It's very rare. But oftentimes, again, hopefully we are offsetting savings with that monthly payment. And leasing will provide them with definite tax benefits. All right, 100% write-off of that monthly payment. So for you, when you're selling the lease, again, you've gone up that yes ladder, you've got the perfect solutions, but this is an important screen as well, that sometimes the customer is going to say no, and you're at that point of sale. You want that customer to say yes, right? And give you that order today, not come back and see me next week, not come back and see me in the spring. We want that order today. Okay, so let's move on. Again, a little more discussion about the financial buyer and the bank. The bank requires businesses to meet certain criteria when they loan the money. The banks track the health of the business by looking at certain ratios: debt to equity, gross margin, net profit margin, current ratio, earnings before taxes, and amortization. Okay, we do look at these things as well, although sometimes not as in-depth. Okay, typically for a $50,000 transaction, usually up to about $75,000, we don't ask for financial statements. We're going to be able to just look at the company, do an Equifax or report on them, and we'll be able to issue a decision based on that. Okay, So when companies ratios, those ratios above, when they deteriorate, they break their covenant with the bank. And when they break the covenant with the bank says, I want all my money now. Okay. With a leasing company, we don't, once the lease is written, that's it. It's set for the term. Okay. So again, customers, the bank and the buyer, be very aware, and you probably know this from running your own businesses, but the banks can call loans and they'll reduce credit facilities. And your financial buyer is very aware of this now. So make sure you use leasing to help you close deals. So right now, with the financial buyer, cash flow is king. You need to focus on the monthly economic impact of your solution. How will your product or service increase revenue or cut costs right away? Use case studies and testimonials. Discuss the cash flow as well as payment and finance alternatives. And we can help you get creative. Okay? So for the customer, again, cash flow. Let's talk about that. It's all about revenues have slowed or stopped. The concern that we're not have to have enough cash to pay expenses in the coming months. So the financial solution. We can offer a step lease. Okay, so the customer says, yeah, I don't have a problem with the lease. It's pretty good. I'm expecting my revenues to come up to par in the next couple of months. In the meantime, we can ease them into a lease. We can do, let's say, an example, 50,000. We could do the first 3 months at 99 plus tax, and the remaining 4 to 60 at 1,060. Okay. So what this can do as well, let's say you've got a customer that says to you, I really like your solution. Can you come back to me? Because my fiscal year end is March 31st. So can you come back in April? Because I think we'll be able to put something together then, right? Well, between now and April, you know who's going to knock on their door? Somebody's brother-in-law, whatever, the competitor. I'm not digging on the brother-in-law. Anyways, but going back is in April, is that a close for you? It's close, but it's not close. No, let's talk to the customer about, you know what, Mr. Customer, I can start the install and I can start and order the product, and we can do a step-up lease for you. So we have lower payments throughout the beginning of the lease. And then when your fiscal year end starts again, we'll come back to a regular payment. Will that solution work for you? So let's get creative. Okay. We can also talk about seasonal payments. You might be dealing with, well, hopefully not a ski operation in Ontario today. They're closed, but you can talk to them about, I know you're closed now, but you need this solution, and it's a generator for you to make snow or whatever it might be. Let's get in there and let's get the equipment working for you today. So when you're ready to go, you're up and running. All right. Lower payments to start the lease. Let's get creative. Seasonal payments, golf courses, whatever it might be. We can also do a buy down for you. Let's say you want to put on a promotion. Let's say you do want to buy down the interest rate. You want to put on a special. I'm going to give my customers a 1% solution. So what you do, I'm taking an example here of a 200,000 lighting solution. You want to offer the customer a 1%. So you would contact me. I could work out what the payment will be. In this case, that's the payment for 24 months. Okay. We would do a buy down. All right. So I would work back essentially the present value of that monthly payment of $8,420.42. The present value is $180, $115.94. So you would give a discount of that amount. These things are available to you. I'm happy to discuss this more. I'm just giving some ideas really quickly right now. But yeah, think about these solutions. All right. So best practices, engage the financial buyer directly. Find out who's making the decision. That's a tough question to ask sometimes. But we want to talk about, is there a budget set for this? Is it coming out of an operating budget? Is it coming out of a capital budget? Leverage case studies. I'm sure You have your expertise and your case studies that you can use to create that monthly ROI, return on investment. That's going to be critical for helping you move your job forward. Determine the budget and how will they be paying for the solution. Obtain finance approval early. I don't need a lot to obtain the financial approval. Okay. And we talked about that a little earlier. If your customer says to you, that's interesting. Why don't we do a pre-approval? You contact me. All right. It's $50,000. We have an approval in less than 24 hours. You've left it with your client. They're that busy one-man operation, still working about vacation relief or whatever it was, the broken truck. And you're able to call them back the next day and say, by the way, I have you approved. And I looked into that ordering of that particular product that you looked at, and we can get that in, et cetera, et cetera. Move that file forward. Keep it going. Keep it going. And get creative with a deadline. So, this is a very easy and I hope powerful tool for you. So Catalyst, just a little bit of background. We have been operating since 2005. We can handle A through D credit, meaning we are a brokerage firm. So I have more than one credit shop that I can approach. Not all of your clients are going to have grade A credit. Some might be struggling a little bit. And my job is to make sure I, uncover every rock to make sure we're getting the customer the best opportunity for an approval to move your projects forward. We can do new businesses. We are a technology focused company, and we can offer you quick turnaround. Personally, Joanne Bailey, I've been in the business for over 20 years and have been successfully negotiating contracts from small to medium-sized businesses for a few $1,000s up to Fortune 500 companies in the millions. One thing I didn't talk about, which I should probably touch on now, is another thing is that we are very good for your cash flow. You might have a project, let's say that is that 50,000, but you still require a deposit to start the project. We can facilitate that through an early commencement. Essentially, we'll start the lease. I can issue the deposit on behalf of the client to you. All right. And that gives you important cash flow to move through the project. Another way we can make this happen, you might be dealing with, maybe it's a very large project, a couple $100,000, and it requires advances of payments upon achievement of certain milestones. And we can accommodate this as well. We do this through a master lease agreement, and I will discuss all the ins and outs with your client. Suffice to know that it will not impact your cash flow, that we have the ability to make sure you have the cash flow to move through the project. Okay, so I talked about quoting a monthly payment, and I just want to quickly show you how easy it is to quote that monthly payment. I have a link that I can provide. I also have the ability to put your logo in there if you wish. So we talked about a $50,000 transaction, and I'm going to say it's for a rooftop, and I'm going to get an instant quote. All right. Now I actually realized as I was speaking, I was quoting 2,000. It's actually half that, 1,000. So you see how you've got a 60 month with a $10 end? It comes in at about 1,020. Are we seeing that? All right, perfect. So what I do is I keep in my mind generally about a $20 per thousand. So if it's 50,000, 50 times 2 is 1,000. So, average up a little bit and you'll be able to come very close. But this is how easy it is to get a quote for your client. You also are able to email it to them. Okay. And that's your quoting tool. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. You should have my contact information.
First, I want to thank you for taking us through this. My mind was blown because I just keep thinking about how many more jobs could be landed with these tools at our disposal. You don't want to be close; you want to close. I'm glad you mentioned that.
That's right.
So my hope for everyone who is watching this presentation will actually explore these different opportunities, these different avenues
Yeah.
to help the the client make that decision that we want, that's in their interest,
Yeah.
for the energy savings and better technology in their facilities. And obviously, people can do work and get paid and paid their people as a
Yeah.
result. So,
Yeah.
Joanne, thanks again for taking the time. I will put again up on the screen the contact
Okay.
information for you so that
Great.
people can reach out to you.
Yes.
And really, thanks a lot for sharing your knowledge.
It's been my pleasure. Totally my pleasure. And I look forward to paying lots of invoices.